The Creche, written and narrated by Tom Adams. Part 1. Foolishness. It was all foolishness. I know that now, but a fool never realizes his mistakes until afterwards. I never believed that there was an afterwards. I held to the maxim, when I am dead, I won't know that I'm dead. That was my biggest mistake, but not my last. If I'd listened, educated myself more, then I might have prepared better for this existence. Then again, nothing could have prepared me for what I have seen. Other than these strong but isolated memories, I have very little recollection of that other life. I assume I'm dead, but I don't know how I died, nor any detail of my journey here. This amnesia became a source of dread in itself. I spent a long time trying to work out if I had started a new life, or if I was trapped in my mind, locked in, so to speak. I dwelt on the possibility my corporeal self was hooked up to a life support machine, lying in a coma somewhere. But what I experienced every hour in this place does not tally with the testimony of those who eventually emerge from such comatose states. Theirs is the luxury of having closed their eyes, then opened them an instant later, only to find whole tracts of time elapsed, children grown, and the world moved on. Countless times I shouted at the silent sky to grant me an awakening so my torment would end, but no answer came. One thing I do know, this is not a dream. Events occur sequentially and follow a certain logic, although this logic isn't always apparent except in retrospect. Actions have predictable consequences. However, the nature of these consequences is utterly alien. Another source of dread. One other thing I am certain of, this is a place of punishment, or at least one of testing. How do I know this? Why, it was made plain by Abraxas. My audience with him is the first thing I remember, the 0 hour on my timeline.
"You are Jericho!"
The words came to me through swirling turquoise vapours, the voice scratching, bird-like. It irritated me on a visceral level, like polystyrene sheets rubbed together inside my head. The name meant nothing to me, and I dismissed it. Then the mist cleared, and I saw 2 writhing snakes, vipers with flickering tongues. Fear clutched my heart as it fluttered like a caged bird. It took me several seconds to register that what I saw were the thing's feet, and I was hung, inverted by the ankles. I strained to look upward, my gaze advancing at length up the giant's body, until it reached the thing's head. It was that of a deformed bird, with black, beady eyes and the beak of a raptor. This unconventional horror shocked me in a manner no nightmare could have equalled. I thought that I should die at that moment. Indeed, I dearly wished it. Yet I was to receive no succour in this respect.
"You yearn for some physical comfort," it said, "and I will grant you one thing. Your choices are threefold: the quenching of your thirst, the removal of your shackles, or clothes."
I did not hesitate in answering. "Release me," I said through parched lips. A scaly minion unlocked the chains that bound me, and I fell to the stone floor in a crumpled heap. It took me some time to recover, and the thing was not patient.
"Look at me," it said,
and I obeyed.
"I am Abraxas, master of Pleroma and death's reward."
"Am I in hell?"
"Do not speak. You shall not be permitted to question."
My mind exploded in torment at the unbearable cacophony caused by its utterances.
"My words are true. You now dwell in the 17th level of the abyss," he continued.
I struggled to quell my rising nausea at the sound of Abraxas' words, but my vision, clearing by the minute, betrayed me as it took in the scale of his body and his sadism. In one claw he held a human torso, limbless and yet still conscious. Shards of glass were embedded in its head, and, as I watched, Abraxas took another splinter and shoved it mercilessly through the skull so that it gained the appearance of a macabre pincushion. The human shrieked its agony in an unknown language, and I willed it to stop, yet it continued. I understood then that it would not be permitted to die. Its cries seemed to amuse Abraxas for a while. Then he tossed it to one side, as if bored with its suffering. I vomited green bile onto the floor, causing the vipers to recoil. Anger and disgust shot from Abraxas' button eyes.
"You defile my chamber, Jericho. You shall clear up your unholy omission."
I looked up again, questioning, and immediately felt the minion's hand on my neck, pushing my nose up to the vomit.
"Lick it up, supplicant. The master abhors your bile. Do it quickly, or feel his wrath."
I now wished I had chosen water over Elise. The smell and taste of the vomit convinced me I was experiencing reality. No dream had ever transcended beyond surreal visions and words, yet here I could touch the rough stone beneath my hands, sense the gritty sputum as it slid down my gullet, and smell the noxious fumes pervading Abraxas' chamber. In comparison, my vomit was ambrosia. It took an interminable time to cleanse Abraxas' floor, yet I accomplished the task at last, thankful my guts didn't rebel and heave it all out again. The minion brought me to my feet, whereupon I saw Abraxas' throne empty. I looked at my captor, now feeling ashamed at my nakedness, reluctant to ask what was to ensue, lest my question be seen as insolence. He spared me his silence.
"The master grew tired of you. He has instructed me to take you outside the Spiral City and set you on course for the Creche."
I kept my counsel, and allowed him to lead me through a maze of passages and caverns. I saw sights that I cannot, even now, describe nor understand, and opted in the end to shield my eyes to prevent mind and reason descending into madness. In time we reached the surface. The Spiral City was aptly named, and the first thing of beauty I beheld in the kingdom of Pleroma. The edifices and dwellings appeared hewn from bone. Porcelain white they were, and reached heights unimaginable, twisting their way like witch-hazel helices to pierce the cinnabar-streaked sky. The streets crawled with a myriad of form and fable. Extreme beauty contrasted with the grotesque, neither offensive to each other, yet they seemed wary, or in some cases terrified. Abraxas' rule was clearly not accepted with grace in this city. By now my mouth was so dry that the breath crackled in my throat, and I stumbled over the hard calcite with a fatigue that arose from sensory saturation. My consorts seemed to take pity on me, and pointed to a dwelling closeted between two grander buildings. Inside were more of his kind. He instructed one in a clicking tongue, who appeared shortly with a skin of water and a rudimentary tunic. I warily expressed my gratitude, and drank a stomachful from the skin.
"Make it last," said the minion. "You will need it to last a 20 league."
I was unfamiliar with the measurement, but it sounded long and arduous. "Am I permitted to ask for the destination and my purpose?" I said this with a sense of acceptance, that by acknowledging the reality of my situation, it would prevent a slide into the chasm of insanity. It looked at me with amber, lizard-like eyes.
"You are to seek the Keeper. She will tell you more when you arrive, but your sojourn at the Creche shall be for a season."
"A season? How long is—"
"No more questions. We will make our way to the city gates now."
I did not dare raise his ire further by insisting on more information, and quickly donned the meagre clothing I had been provided with. The distance to the gates was short, and I mustered enough forbearance to observe the teeming life around me in more detail. Some appeared subservient, while others strode with an arrogance that spoke of a higher caste or calling. One day I may describe them in more detail to you, but even now, for the most part, words fail me. Outside the thick walls and double gates, I gazed upon a blasted volcanic plain. Black ash powdered the sparsely growing thorn plants and occasional boulder, its desolation threatening to drag my spirits to a new low, until I was told I would be making the journey alone. No sadist to torment or gloat. The reptile thing explained that I needed to seek out a large dwelling at the foot of a distant mountain.
"Keep aiming for yonder spur at the foot of the last peak. The name of the woman you seek is Gundred."
"Will she be expecting me?" I asked.
She's been waiting over 1,000 years.
It turned to go as I shook my head in disbelief. Then I decided to risk another question. If I lose my way, I'll die of thirst. How will that help your master? Its eyelids blinked laterally.
The dead cannot die again. But suffering, that is another question. It matters not if the journey takes a day or 1,000 days. You will arrive when you arrive. Now go. You are an irritation to me.
He slunk toward the city without looking back, and I was faced with a choice. Carry out my orders, or try to return and take refuge in the Towers of Bone. I tried to shake off the feeling of dislocation, but I had no reference point. I didn't know how I came to be here, or even who I was. Abraxas said my name was Jericho, yet the sound of it didn't stir any memory. I decided to keep moving, for the simple reason that if I remained stationary, I knew I would lose my mind. If anyone cared to find me, I would only be discovered under a layer of black ash.